in the sugya of gratitude. So it's been a while. I want to get very practical. I want to get practical today. Let's get some practical examples this week and Be'ez Hashem next week as well. We've been talking about gratitude. Just to recap, what we're trying to do is to change our mindset to automatically be a mindset of gratitude, not something that should be a reaction, not something that we even have to work on too hard. It should be part of our blood, a part of our system, part of our mahalach hachayim. Our mindset should automatically be shifted to gratitude. How do we do it? We talked about the miles of it. We talked about happiness, how it's linked to gratitude. The simchas hachayim that people have is because of gratitude. So it's all very nice talking about the miles, but the miles, what do we do? Okay. So this week and next week, I want to go through. I think I have six practical eitzes, maybe five practical eitzes of how to work on gratitude. We'll start number one with Chazal. Chazal will masaken various things in order that we should have gratitude. And the very first thing is an obvious one. It's one of the things that we do many times during the day, and that is making a bracha. Making a bracha is to recognize that everything comes from the Ribbono Shel Olam. The word baruch is unfortunately mistranslated, but it also means bless. But really what we're saying is that we're saying that the Ribbono Shel Olam is the source, is the makor of all of the bracha, and to acknowledge that everything we have in our lives comes from the Ribbono Shel Olam. We're saying you, Hashem, are the source of all of our blessing, all of our bracha that we have in the world. And we have to constantly learn. Me'er brachos b'chol yom means that we constantly develop our focus of life being that everything comes from the Ribbono Shel Olam and that everything we have is a gift from Hashem, and therefore we have to develop that mindset. And that's why we make 100 brachas a day, to constantly recognize the source of everything we have. Birchas HaShacha, right? One of the most incredible examples, that the things that we often take for granted. Right? I try sometime when I make the brachas Zokev Kefufim just to put my back up, because Lamaisa, we don't realize, we don't appreciate the things that we have until often, unfortunately, we don't have them, right? It's the famous Baal Shem Tov, Vayda of the Nefesh, Vayda Nofash. We unfortunately appreciate things when we don't have them. When I was a few weeks ago when I had the corona, whatever, and swallowing was like an avoida. It was like, okay, I'm about to swallow. Okay, ready? Brace yourself, go. And it was so painful. And I remember one of the boys, and she was like, can I get anything for you? I'm like, just do me one thing, just appreciate the fact that you can swallow. Because it's so hard for me. And now okay, you swallow, but we do it the whole time. I appreciate it. Boom, it doesn't happen. Oh my gosh, wow, I can swallow. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. The things that we do in the morning, from putting on our shoes, from getting dressed, putting on a belt, opening our eyes, standing up straight, these are things that we take for granted, but yet we wake up in the morning and we should absolutely open up our eyes and realize the gifts that the Ribbono Shel Olam has given us. And again, the purpose of it is gratitude, to say thank you to the Ribbono Shel Olam, to appreciate. Wake up in the morning, the first thing we do, thank the Ribbono Shel Olam that we have. The Rabbi Sachs Zatzal from the Chief Rabbi of England said a beautiful thought one time, beautifully said. He said that if you ever looked at insurance papers, right? If any of you that ever signed insurance papers for a property, for whatever it may be, so it says over there that you are insured for many things, except for an act of God. What's considered to be an act of God? A hurricane, a tornado, or something like that, right? So Rabbi Sachs once said, it's so sad, that only when a tornado comes and only when a hurricane comes, that's an act of God. But a simple sun rising or simple things that are happening in the world, that's not an act of God. It's sad that we don't look at that as an act of God. We have to learn to look at our focus, to not take for granted the things that we have on a daily basis that the Ribbono Shel Olam gives us, to recognize what's going on. What is the very first thing that a Yid does when he wakes up in the morning? Is Moida Ani. Why are we doing that? Because the first thing that a Yid does when he wakes up in the morning is to recognize who gave our neshama, who gave our life back, who allowed us to breathe. Moida Ani Lefanecha is the very first thing that a Yid does in the morning. The Chidush HaRim, the Ger Rebbe, explains the reason why a Yid is called a Yid from the Lashon Yehudi, Lashon of Hoidah. We're Moida, we give thanks, we recognize, we have gratitude to the Ribbono Shel Olam for everything that we have. So the very first thing that we have to remember and recognize is an institute in our lives is to recognize the good that we have from the Ribbono Shel Olam and express it. I'll tell you a modige pshat that I heard from the Heilige Radomska, Rav Naftali Radomsk. This is a modige pshat. Listen to this. The pasuk says, and we're all familiar with this pasuk, Mi ha'ish ha'chofetz chaim, oyev yamim lirosh toiv, nitzor shalchem leira. Right? So we know the pasuk, as we know, famously is talking about Shmiras Haloshen, and the Chofetz Chaim talks about this as in the Akdama to Shmiras Haloshen, that if a person, and we translate it as who wants life, who loves the days, everything's good, guard your mouth from Lashon Hara, and you'll have a wonderful life, you'll have a good time, or whatever it may be. Sukta Radomsker Rebbe, new pshat. This is how you read the pasuk. Mi ha'ish ha'chofetz chaim, oyev yamim. Who wants life, loves the days, lirois toiv, to see the good. That if you learn to see the good and you learn to recognize that everything you have in the world is from the Rabbeinu Shalom, then you want to speak Lashon Hara, because you recognize that everything comes from Hashem and everything is good and everything we have is good. And when you start to recognize and realize that what we have is good, it's gavaldik. I've told over this Maisa before, but I think it's so gavaldik, I love it. A head teacher of a school got a phone call one time from a lady that she fired a number of years ago. And she was very surprised to get the phone call. Like, she hadn't heard from this lady for years, and she fired her. She was like a bit, why are you calling me? She said, well, I'll tell you, to be honest with you, after you fired me, I moved out of town. I was very embarrassed. It was hard for me. I had no job, whatever. So I moved out of town, and I went to a different place. And I decided a few years later, which is ready now, to take on teaching. I took a teacher's course. And I want to learn how to teach properly. I really want to learn how to do it. Maybe I made mistakes in my past. I want to do it properly. So one of the very first assignments they gave us to be a teacher was to call up the person you hate the most. Therefore, I'm calling you. So the head teacher was like, oh, thanks, that's great. And then she continues to continue the conversation. And they said, okay, so they told us, think of the person you hate the most, and then write 10 things about that person that they did good for you. So this teacher was thinking, I hate that headmistress. She fired me, I had to go out of town, it was terribly embarrassing, I had no parnassa, I hate them. How can I think of anything good? I started to think of a few good things. I said, actually, when I came into town, when I first moved in, you brought me cake over. When I first moved into the school and I got a job, you introduced me in such a nice way, you gave me introduction. She started thinking about a few good things, and she actually put 10 things to paper of the things that actually you did so good for me. And then the instructor said, I want to call that person, I want to thank them. And she said, I want to thank you. I hated you because what you did for me. But then I started to think of all the things, and I counted the blessings that you gave me, and then I realized, something? Maybe what you did for me was actually not something so bad, because I realized all the good. And then many times in life, we have situations that look bad, that are people that do things, whatever it may be. We have to learn to change the mindset, to look at the good, concentrate on it, highlight it. It can change our mindset of how we look at people as well, right? It's the same thing also when a person is jealous on something else. What eliminates jealousy? Well, we're so often jealous of someone because we compare ourselves to him or to her. They're doing well, they're successful, they're doing this better, I'm not, and therefore I am jealous. Happiness, as we've said, comes from within. If we're only happy because of our external sources and things that go on around us, that is not true happiness, that's fake happiness, and it will not last. If you want real happiness in life, learn to be happy, and happiness has to come from within. To compare yourself to somebody else and that makes you happy, it makes you higher, it makes you better, is because your happiness comes from outside. It doesn't come from within. We have to learn how to be happy from within. That's real happiness, and that's a real simcha s'chaim that a person can have. I want to give you a couple more strategies to discuss, okay? In fact, we haven't really discussed strategy. Let's go now and discuss some strategies today, and then in Mr. next week we'll do. I want to talk about practical strategies, l'maisa. What can you work on? Like we will call this a vad. A vad is something that we're meant to work on, so that next week we say, okay, we worked on that, let's move on to the next thing. So let's talk about some practical strategies. Number one, the Zohar Kodesh brings down that everything starts from the beginning. Everything sets the tone from the beginning. If the beginning is good, then that sets the tone for the rest. That means the beginning of the day is the most important part of the day. Well, that's why the Shulchan Aruch says you have to, get up, ka'ari. In fact, somebody told me that one of the Gaboim of Marash Yeshiva of Scheinberg used to wake up Rav Scheinberg, and he made like a roar when he got up in the morning. Dafka, as that Shulchan Aruch, get up like a lion, geschmack. The beginning, says the Zohar, it sets the tone for the rest, which means the beginning of your day, it sets the tone for the rest of your day. There's a study that they made that people, there are two ways of waking up in the morning. You can wake up with the radio, that your radio automatically turns on and you hear the news, you hear what's going on in the world, or you can wake up with a music or something similar. So they made a study that the people that woke up with the radio are naturally more depressed people than people that wake up with music. And the reason for that is because radio generally is bad news. There's no news that's good. It's all bad news. And therefore, if you're waking up in the morning with things that are depressing, that are bad, the rest of the day is not going to be gishmak either. Because the beginning of the day sets the tone for the rest of the day. Therefore, if the moment you wake up tomorrow morning, Be'ezus Hashem, you wake up in the morning and you concentrate on the words Moida Ani and don't just say them, that think, the Rebbeinu Shalom has just given me a life. How many people right now in the world, I've never been to study, but I'm sure there are thousands of people every morning that just don't wake up. We woke up. We have the ability to wake up. Not only do we wake up that we can open up our eyes, we can see. We can also breathe. We can also stand up. We can also feel. We can hear. There are so many things that we can do. Stop right before you say Moida Ani and thank the Rebbeinu Shalom be'emes from your heart for waking up. Gratitude. Start your day with gratitude in the right way. The rest of the day will follow with gratitude. You're starting to change your mindset into understanding what you have in your life. Number 2. This is a bit of a harder one. I suggested it to a couple of people recently. They did it and they told me it's unbelievable and it's mama's changed them. And that is a gratitude journal. Right? You can do it on your phone, a piece of paper, it's irrelevant, no one has to know about it, right? People have done it, I've asked people to do it, they've done it, it has changed them. The Sifrei Kabbalah are very big into the idea that if you want your emotions to grow, they need to live on all levels of existence. Now the Sifrei Kabbalah brings there are 3 levels of existence, right? There are 3 what we call garments of the soul, right? The neshama is not just that there's 3 garments of the soul, right? There's thought, there's speech, and there's action. Right? These are the 3 garments of the soul, famous from Kabbalah, whatever it is. Therefore, if you want to develop anything in your life, you need to work on it on all levels of existence. Therefore, if you want to develop, which is what we're doing now, a perspective of gratitude, you need to write it down. Even the small things, tiny things, just note them on your phone. Note them down, send yourself a voice note, whatever it is. Things that you can be grateful for. When you write them down, number 1, you have to think about it. And you have to do it. We know famously from the Chinuch says that your outside actions very much actually develop and work on and nurture the inside action and it develop your mind. It affects your mind process. If you want to change your mind into a mind of gratitude, you need to start using all aspects. And that's why thinking and writing, which is an action, adds to what's going on. And one last thing for today is what we call... Someone did something good for you, he called you up and he said, I want to invite you to something, or he opened the door for you, or he poured you a cup of orange juice, or he said good morning to you, or he's in a good friend, he had a listening ear when you had a trouble. These are beautiful things you have to be thankful. Write them down. You write them down, it's going to affect your mind process. Your mind will start thinking of gratitude. Okay? Can you imagine being married with your mindset being of gratitude? Anything. Hashem and people. Both. Could you imagine being married and your whole mindset has shifted before you get married to a mindset of gratitude? Do you know what that will do to your relationship with your wife? That your whole life will be a mindset of gratitude and you've trained it now. You can't start then. I never heard of someone giving chosn lessons on gratitude before you get married. They give chosn lessons on niddah. They should be giving it on these things as well. That's a different story. But they give it on niddah, which they do all. They have to also. But this is what we're doing now. We're changing our mindset so that when the time comes, and it's not too late, you can work on it also once you get married. But the point is to try. One last thing for today, I say, is what's called a replacement theory. I did this with someone else also. I've tried this out with people. A replacement theory means that sometimes a negative thought comes into your head about someone, about something, about a situation. We have instincts, David. We're human beings, right? At the end of the day, we have a mind, we have a yitzhara, we have all sorts of things going on, negative influences around us, and sometimes it's not even a conscious choice that we make to have a negative feeling or a negative thought that goes into our head. Oh, I can't believe he did that. He went to the restaurant, he didn't invite me. First thing that comes to our head. Hold on a minute. Replace it. Immediately replace it with a good one. Your roommate didn't invite you to a restaurant? That's really bad. I'm really upset. Immediately change it. You know what happens? He's a great roommate. He never wakes me up at night. He's very careful in the morning. He cleans up. I was like, boom. Immediately learn to replace, called the replacement theory. And therefore, the first choice is not necessarily our choice. Because something that pops into our head because we're a human being. But what is our choice is the second theory, is the second thought, the second idea. Therefore, if a negative thought ever comes into your heart about somebody else, learn to quickly go along and change it. And therefore, we learn to train our mind to constantly look and see and recognize and highlight the gratitude that we have in our lives. In Mitzvah Hashem next week, Be'ez Hashem will continue with some more strategies.